You're listening to The Best of Perry Gauthier, where we remember our friend and leader who was taken from us in this life in December of 2020. It is our hope that his memory lives on in the hundreds and thousands of people who he touched both in and outside of capitals in this country and around the world. We will be sharing interviews that Perry did for radio and television throughout the following weeks. Perry was always prepared to share the good news of Christ and God's love for politicians and people serving in the political realm. This week, Pastor Perry informs us of the true roles of the institutions in culture.
The church tries to be the government, or the government tries to be the church?
Yes, Gary, that's a great question. One of my Nebraska State senators in Bible study, as I've taught these concepts, the roles of the institutions in culture, he said, "Oh, you got to tell the other senators this." I said, "What's that, Senator?" He said, "Tell them that each institution has to play in its own sandbox." I said, "Okay, I'll tell them."
There you go.
And the institutions are separate, and they're separate, as Isaac said, by God's design. And as Sam said, as five independent fingers, they each do a beautiful thing on their own. The ring finger isn't the thumb. But these institutions, they really do their own thing, designed brilliantly by God. And I like to say, Gary, that the church isn't expected to arrest all the grocery store thieves in the state. And we don't expect commerce, as one of God's five institutions, to raise good children. We don't expect marriages to economize the whole culture. So you don't mess these things up. It's ridiculous. So they do each have to do their own thing. If the state tries to become the church, which it has historically, you get a theocracy. And if you're not Anglican in England, you're going to be in the stocks and you're going to die if you don't worship in the Church of England in the 1700s and the 1600s. So people fled to America, right? So when the state tries to become the church, you get a theocracy. Another example is when the state interferes in commerce. Instead of letting commerce economize a culture through bosses and workers, you get socialism. And then the state runs a socialistic society because, surely bosses and workers, they can't generate wealth with good ideas and hard work. It's up to the state. So they got to levelize everything. And you get a socialistic philosophy, which, of course, we know leads to communism, which we know bankrupts cultures and robs human souls of vitality. Now, last illustration is when the church tries to when the state tries to play the role of ethical inventor of morals, you'll get something as perverted as gay marriage, so-called gay, so-called marriage. In the Bible, sodomy was a capital punishment. So New Testament Christians, we take this sin of sodomy very seriously. And so for the state to, without ethical correct information, to say they define marriage, redefine marriage, is ridiculous. So the institutions, they do have to stay separate, as you know.
We hope you are enjoying The Best of Perry as much as we are, and are excited to bring you another one next week, where Pastor Perry addresses what political turnoffs are and how to handle people that identify as your worst nightmare.